Hello. The Russians are advancing on the Lyman front, gaining ground in Kupyansk and toward Bakhmut. Meanwhile, Ukrainian forces are launching a counterattack and have seized an area in Sumy. With so much news and a lot of deep analysis, it's difficult to understand what is happening. So let's get right to it. On the Kupyansk front, new movements have emerged in this axis. Advancing Russian forces have made progress in two different directions. The first direction was in the northeast of the city, where they expanded control over an area extending about 1.5 kilometers in depth and nearly 1 kilometer in width. This expansion is primarily aimed at strengthening the military presence in this sector and securing stronger positions on the ground. Looking at the details on the maps, there is a river that forms a natural barrier in the region. This river forces the troops to find alternative routes for movement and transport. This explains the push toward the town of Pokrovsk, north of Kupyansk. The goal here is to expand the scope of control and solidify the front lines, which provides greater flexibility in dealing with any potential counterattacks. As for the city itself, operations are still ongoing. The eastern part is witnessing attempts to establish broader control, while clashes remain sporadic in the western part. Through these movements, it has become possible to link control of the eastern and western banks of the nearby river, which provides an opportunity to create temporary crossings, or what are known as floating corridors. These corridors are an important means of transporting personnel and equipment between different axes, which facilitates reinforcing positions and increasing pressure on the opposing defense lines. However, despite these gains, challenges remain. The process of transporting troops and supplies across water bodies requires broader control of the land, in addition to securing bridges or alternative crossings. Without this security, the ability to maneuver remains limited, which makes the process of encircling the city from its western side a step that requires more fieldwork and logistical preparation. Now regarding the eastern part of the Kupyansk front, specifically in the direction of Pishchane, field movements continued there over the past hours. After Russian forces previously established a presence in a specific area, they have now expanded their presence by taking control of some defensive fortifications scattered around the town. Despite this progress, the situation is not without complications. The area is witnessing counter-offensive attempts by Ukrainian forces to reduce the scope of control and prevent any further advance toward Pishchane. The main goal of these Ukrainian movements is to try and hold defenses for as long as possible and slow the push toward the town of Kulivka, which is in the eastern direction. Looking at the overall picture, it appears that the Ukrainian forces are betting heavily on a defensive line spread between the towns of Pishchane, Petropavlivka, and Kurilivka. These defensive lines form a belt through which the Ukrainians are trying to delay any attempt to reach the outskirts of the city. In return, the attacking forces are relying on the tactic of keeping the Ukrainian forces busy in this axis in order to deprive them of the ability to send reinforcements toward the heart of the city. That is, they are moving on two parallel lines, putting pressure on the outskirts and at the same time carrying out operations inside the northeastern and western areas of Kupyansk. This, then, is what can be summarized regarding the direction of Kupyansk. Now we'll move on to the Sumy axis. In this area, Ukrainian forces have made clear progress, seizing a new area that extends for several kilometers and has appeared in blue on military maps. The most significant achievement here was regaining full control of the town of Kostyantynivka. It appears that the goal of this advance is to increase the pace of operations and regain some previously lost positions. According to the available information, Ukrainian forces have also recaptured the towns of Kindrivka and Varoshiny in the same direction. These field gains give the Ukrainians a morale boost, but at the same time, they are part of a very complex battle, as it cannot be said that the way is now open and easy. It is important to remember that Ukrainian forces, despite being busy on other fronts like Myrnohrad and Pokrovsk, are still dedicating units to carry out these operations in Sumy. This means that the Ukrainian command is trying to distribute its capabilities on more than one axis at the same time, which leaves the scene open to multiple possibilities. We will have to wait and see how things develop on this front in the coming days. Now we'll move on to the Lyman front, where significant movements are ongoing. Specifically in the town of Zarichne, the Russians have expanded their scope of control northward. The newly controlled area is clearly visible on the map, with the depth of the advance estimated at about half a kilometre, extending for about 1.5 kilometres. While this progress may seem limited in terms of numbers, its importance lies in strengthening nearby support positions and backing up the operations being carried out on the front lines. Following the general map, it appears that the scope of operations in this area has been widening during the current month. Movements are continuing along the entire front line surrounding the city of Lyman, which reflects a clear trend toward intensifying pressure on this sector. Despite the distance separating the forces from the city, the current deployment includes units from various formations operating in parallel, indicating that Lyman represents an important objective at this stage. Lyman's importance comes from its strategic location in the north of the Donetsk province. It is considered one of the pivotal points that opens the way toward central cities such as Slovyansk and Kramatorsk, and also affects the battle for Siversk. For this reason, it is noted that operations toward it receive a great deal of focus, as control of this city would change the balance of the field in this part. We'll now close this axis to move on to the Kostyantynivka front. The scene here is largely different and appears more complex. The battles in this area are not easy, especially after Ukrainian forces previously managed to regain parts of the city. Currently, only a specific part remains under the control of the opposing forces, while the Ukrainian forces continue to strengthen their positions and try to exert pressure to push the danger away from the city's surroundings. According to recent movements, Ukrainian units are working to regroup their forces in the Bridishini area, with the aim of providing additional protection for the defense lines near the city. This concentration allows them to launch counterattacks aimed at forcing the other side to retreat, or at least reduce the area under their control. It is natural under these circumstances for the scene to be more like a struggle with opposing directions as each side seeks to impose its field dominance. The forces are constantly moving in opposite directions, with each side trying to establish its presence and prevent the other from making any breakthrough that would change the current situation. This is how the picture looks on the Lyman and Kostyantynivka axes so far. Now we arrive at the Pokrovsk front and its field developments. In this direction, movements have emerged in the vicinity of Marinka, specifically in the eastern part of the town, where advancing forces have managed to seize a new area. The size of the advance is approximately 1 kilometre. While the numbers may seem limited, their field significance is important, as they indicate continuous pressure and a gradual expansion of the area of control. However, the nature of the defensive fortifications in the area adds to the difficulty of these operations. The eastern part of Marinka contains heavily fortified positions that were used to repel attacks, which makes the advance in this axis more like a confrontation with a fortified stronghold. For this reason, the attacking forces are seeking to activate the battle more broadly by distributing pressure in several directions at once. The clear goal is to reduce the other side's ability to maneuver and prevent it from maintaining all of its defensive lines extending toward towns such as Novo-Mikhailivka and Novoselivka. Control of these areas means strengthening the presence in the south of the Donetsk province and opening the way for a new phase of operations. In addition to these movements, simultaneous strikes are being recorded on nearby axes, most notably in the directions of Ivanivka and Novopavlivka, where the focus is on targeting supply points and trying to weaken the defensive positions there. These movements come as part of a broader plan to keep pressure on along the front in the Pokrovsk sector. On other axes, confrontations continue at a high pace on the Dnipro front, and also on the Andriivka and Zeleny High lines. Despite the intensity of operations and the exchange of strikes on these axes, the map of control has not seen fundamental changes so far. This means that the confrontations there remain within the framework of mutual attrition and continuous probing attempts. This, then, is the most important of what is happening in the Pokrovsk axis and the directions surrounding it. We have reached the end of the video. Don't forget to support the video and subscribe to the channel. See you later.